They said humanity was weak. They said the elf woman with her dragons was nothing more than a curiosity, a relic of a forgotten era. But when the arrogant alien warlord underestimated her bond with the ancient beasts, he signed his own death warrant. What happened next would echo across the stars and reach the ears of the Empress herself. The obsidian halls of the Dominion. War Council gleamed under violet light, casting sharp shadows across the faces of those who believed themselves invincible. At the center of the circular chamber stood Commander Zikther, a Krillian warlord whose exoskeleton shimmered with bioluminescent pride. His four eyes gleamed with contempt as he surveyed the holographic projection before him. "This?" he hissed, mandibles clicking in amusement. "This is what the outer colonies fear?" The hologram displayed a slender figure cloaked in forest green armor, standing atop a cliff with two massive creatures coiled at her sides. Their scales caught the dying light of twin suns, one dragon midnight black, the other crimson as fresh blood. Captain Lyanna Frost, human, elf-descended hybrid. Dragon Rider. "She has destroyed 3 of our outposts," reported Sub-Commander Vex, his voice carefully neutral. 17 ships. 426 soldiers. Zikther's laughter rattled through the chamber like grinding stone. "Impossible. Humans are vermin. Their neural capacity is pedestrian. Their physical strength, laughable. And these creatures?" He gestured dismissively at the dragons. "Overgrown reptiles with delusions of majesty. Sir, the reconnaissance data suggests." "I don't care what your data suggests." Zikther's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "I will personally end this charade. Prepare my flagship. We hunt this pest before the week is out." What Zikther didn't know, what his arrogance refused to let him see, was that Lyanna Frost was not just a soldier. She was a survivor of the Verdant Massacre, where Krillian forces had glassed her homeworld, turning forests into ash and cities into tombs. She had watched her family burn. She had crawled through the ruins with nothing but rage and the 2 dragon eggs she'd stolen from a Dominion research facility. She had raised Nyx and Ember in secret, feeding them on her own blood when supplies ran low, whispering ancient elven songs her grandmother had taught her. The bond between rider and dragon was not simply tactical. It was soul-deep, forged in grief and tempered by vengeance. Now, on the frost-covered moon of Helion 9, Lyanna stood at the edge of a ravine, her breath misting in the thin air. Her pointed ears twitched, catching the faint hum of approaching engines. Behind her, Nyx rumbled, a sound like distant thunder. Ember shifted, her crimson eyes glowing with anticipation. "They're coming," Lyanna murmured, her hand resting on the pommel of her plasma blade. 3 cruisers, escort fighters, and him. She didn't need scanners to know Zikther was leading the assault. She had studied him for months, learned his patterns, his cruelty, his unshakable belief in Krillian superiority. It was that arrogance that would kill him. The first cruiser broke through the cloud layer, its weapons charging with a high-pitched whine. Lyanna didn't move. She simply closed her eyes and reached out, not with her hands, but with her mind. The neural link she shared with her dragons flared to life, a connection so profound it transcended language. Nyx launched first, his obsidian wings cutting through the air like scythes. Ember followed, a streak of crimson fury. Together, they were not just beasts. They were extensions of Lyanna's will, her anger, her precision. The Krillian pilots never stood a chance. Nyx's plasma breath melted through the cruiser's shields as if they were paper. Ember's talons tore through the hull, venting atmosphere and bodies into the frozen void. The escort fighters scattered, but Lyanna had already calculated their trajectories. She mounted Nyx mid-flight, her movements fluid and practiced, and together they became a storm. Zikther watched from his flagship's command deck, his confidence fracturing like ice. "Impossible," he whispered. "She's just one human." But Lyanna Frost was not just one human. She was humanity's refusal to break. She was the fury of a dying world given wings and fire. And as Nyx descended upon Ziekthar's flagship, the warlord finally understood the price of underestimating those he deemed weak. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, Ziekthar's fleet was debris, and the commander himself knelt in the snow, his exoskeleton cracked, his pride shattered. Lyanna dismounted, her boots crunching in the frost. She stood before him, silent, her green eyes cold as the void. "Tell your Empress," she said quietly, "that humanity remembers. She didn't kill him. Death was too kind. Instead, she let him live, a broken monument to arrogance, so he could carry her message back to the Dominion throne." What Lyanna didn't know was that the Empress was already watching. The celestial throne room existed in a space where physics bent to imperial will. Crystalline walls refracted light from 1,000 conquered stars, casting rainbow shadows across marble floors inlaid with precious metals from worlds whose names had been erased from history. At the center of this monument to power sat Empress Saranth Valkora, her silver skin gleaming like polished moonlight, her violet eyes ancient beyond measure. She was Etherbarn, a species that had mastered faster-than-light travel when humanity was still painting on cave walls. Her kind lived for millennia, accumulated knowledge like treasures, and viewed other races with the detached interest one might reserve for insects under glass. But now, those violet eyes were fixed intently on the holographic display before her. Lyanna Frost. The recording played on an endless loop. The way the human moved with her dragons, the precision of their strikes, the devastating efficiency of their assault. Saranth had watched it 17 times, analyzing every angle, every choice, every moment of lethal grace. "Fascinating," she murmured, her voice like distant chimes. High Chancellor Morvick, a towering Krillian diplomat with more political acumen than his warrior brethren, shifted uncomfortably. "Your Radiance, Commander Ziekther has returned. He requests an audience to explain his defeat. Does he?" Sarinth's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "How generous of him to volunteer for execution. The Council suggests too much and thinks too little." The Empress rose from her throne, her flowing robes defying gravity as she moved. "Bring me the human, alive, unharmed, and bring her dragons." Morvick's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Your Radiance, she has killed hundreds of our soldiers. She is a terrorist. She is an artist." Saranth's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "And I would very much like to meet her." 3 star systems away, Lyanna sat in the cockpit of her stolen scout ship, running system diagnostics while Nyx and Ember rested in the cargo hold. The ship was barely holding together, patched with salvaged parts and held aloft by stubbornness. But it was hers, and it was freedom. Her fingers danced across the console, checking fuel reserves, ammunition stores, and the various traps she'd rigged in case the Dominion came calling. They always came calling. A proximity alert shrieked to life. Lyanna's hand went to her weapon, but she froze when she saw the signature. Not warships, not fighters. A single diplomatic vessel, broadcasting on all frequencies with the Imperial seal. The message was simple. "Captain Frost, the Empress requests your presence. You will not be harmed. You have my word." Lyanna laughed bitterly. "Your word?" Your people turned my world to glass. But even as she said it, curiosity gnawed at her. The Empress herself? Why would the ruler of 300 worlds care about one human with 2 dragons? The diplomatic ship maintained its distance, making no aggressive moves. Hours passed. Lyanna ran simulations, calculated escape vectors, and weighed her options. She could run. She'd gotten very good at running. Or she could find out what the most powerful being in known space wanted with her. Nyx's consciousness brushed against hers. A wordless question. Embers followed, tinged with protective fury. "I know," Lyanna whispered. "I know it's probably a trap. But what if it's not?" She thought of the colonies still under Dominion rule, the humans still serving as second-class citizens, the children who grew up knowing they were considered inferior. She thought of her burned world and her dead family. Sometimes the only way forward was through the fire. "This is Captain Frost," she transmitted. "I'll come. But my dragons come with me. And if this is a trick, I promise you'll need more than one fleet to stop me." The response came immediately. "Agreed. Coordinates transmitted. The Empress awaits." The journey to the capital world of Etheron Prime took 6 days. Lyanna spent every moment preparing, sharpening her weapons, reinforcing her mental shields, and running combat scenarios with Nyx and Ember. If this was an execution, she would make it legendary. But when her ship descended through Etheron's atmospheric shield and landed in the Imperial Gardens, what greeted her was not an army. It was the Empress herself, standing alone among flowering trees that bloomed with bioluminescent petals. Sarenth was smaller than Lyanna expected, barely reaching her shoulder, but the power radiating from her was undeniable. This was a being who could reshape reality with a thought, who had lived through the rise and fall of civilizations. "Captain Frost," the Empress said, her voice surprisingly warm. "Thank you for accepting my invitation." Lyanna kept her hand near her weapon. "You wanted to meet the terrorist who's been destroying your fleets? I wanted to meet the woman who proved my commanders were fools." Sarenth gestured to the dragons who had landed protectively beside Lyanna. "And I wanted to see these magnificent creatures up close." "May I?" It was the politeness that threw Lyanna off balance. Emperors didn't ask permission. They commanded. They took. But Sarenth waited, patient as stone, until Lyanna gave a cautious nod. The Empress approached Nyx, her silver hand extended. The dragon lowered his massive head, allowing her to touch his scales. A shiver ran through his body, and Lyanna felt it through their bond, not pain, but recognition. As if Nyx sensed something in this ancient being that even Lyanna couldn't see. "Remarkable," Sarenth breathed. "The neural bond. It's not technology. It's not genetic engineering. It's pure will and love." She turned to Lyanna, and for the first time, the human saw something like respect in those violet eyes. "You have done what my scientists said was impossible. You have created true unity between species." "I didn't do it for science," Lyanna said coldly. "I did it to survive." "Yes, and that is why you succeeded where others failed." The Empress clasped her hands behind her back. "I have a proposition for you, Captain Frost, one that will change the course of this war." Lyanna's eyes narrowed. "I'm listening." The weight of the Empress's gaze was like standing under a collapsing star. Lyanna had faced death countless times, had stared down warships and walked through fire, but this moment felt different. This was not a battle she could win with plasma and fury. This was something far more dangerous: negotiation. "Walk with me," Sarenth said, turning toward a path that wound through the gardens. It was not a request, but it lacked the edge of command. Lyanna exchanged a glance with Nyx, felt Ember's protective warmth through their bond, and followed. The gardens were impossibly beautiful, filled with flora from 1,000 worlds. Trees with silver bark and golden leaves grew beside crystalline flowers that sang in harmonics when the wind touched them. Water flowed upward in defying streams, forming floating pools where iridescent fish swam through the air itself. "Do you know why the Dominion has endured for 12,000 years?" Sarenth asked as they walked. "Superior firepower," Lyanna replied flatly. The Empress laughed, a sound like distant bells. "That is what my generals believe. They are wrong. We have endured because we adapt. We learn. We take the best from those we conquer and make it our own." She paused beside a fountain where liquid light pooled and swirled. "But we have grown stagnant, comfortable, arrogant. Like Ziegther, precisely like Ziegther. Sarinth's expression hardened. He is one of thousands who believe might alone guarantees victory. They have forgotten that true power comes from understanding your enemy, respecting their strengths, and never underestimating their capacity for innovation. Lyanna crossed her arms. So you invited me here for a lesson in humility? I invited you here because you represent something my empire desperately needs. The Empress turned to face her fully. You are proof that humanity, despite being dismissed as weak and primitive, can achieve what my most advanced scientists cannot. You have bonded with creatures of pure elemental fury. You have turned yourself into a weapon that single-handedly crippled 3 military installations. And you did it all with nothing but determination and rage. And you want to use me. I want to elevate you. Sarinth's voice carried absolute conviction. Join my command structure. Not as a subordinate, but as a marshal. You will have authority over fleet deployments, access to resources beyond imagining, and the power to reshape how this empire treats humanity. No more second-class citizenship. No more exploitation. True equality. Lyanna felt her breath catch. It was everything she had fought for, offered on a silver platter by the very empire that had destroyed her world. The irony was not lost on her, and in return, you helped me root out the rot in my military. The commanders like Ziegther, who have grown fat on their own superiority. You teach my forces what you have learned. And you remind them that underestimating any species, any individual, is the fastest path to extinction. It was a trap. It had to be. Lyanna's every instinct screamed that this was too convenient, too perfect. And yet, as she looked into Sarinth's ancient eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected. Sincerity. The Empress was not lying. She genuinely believed that Lyanna could change the Dominion from within. But belief and reality were not the same thing. What happened to Ziegther? Lyanna asked quietly. He has been stripped of rank and assigned a labor detail on a mining colony. He will spend the remainder of his long life breaking rocks and contemplating the cost of arrogance. Sarinth smiled coldly. I do not tolerate failure, Captain. But I reward those who prove their worth. I'm not interested in rewards. Then what are you interested in? Revenge? You've already taken that. Justice? This is your chance to ensure no other human world suffers what yours did. Or perhaps... Sarinth stepped closer, her voice dropping. Perhaps you simply want a matter. To know that your pain, your loss, your fight meant something beyond ashes and ghosts. The words struck deeper than any weapon. Lyanna felt Nyx and Ember through the bond, felt their steady presence, their unwavering loyalty. They had been with her through everything. They had never questioned, never wavered. Could she trust this ancient being the same way? I need guarantees, Lyanna said finally. In writing. Witnessed by your council. Full citizenship rights for all humans across the Dominion. Access to education, military positions, political representation. And a full investigation into what happened at Verdant. Done. Sarinth didn't hesitate. Though I warn you, the investigation may uncover truths you do not wish to face. I've faced worse. Then we have an accord. The Empress extended her hand. And when Lyanna took it, she felt a surge of energy. As if the universe itself was sealing their agreement. Welcome to the Imperial Command, Marshal Frost. Your first assignment begins immediately. 3 days later, Lyanna stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Vigilance, the most advanced warship in the Dominion fleet. Her forest green armor had been upgraded with Imperial insignia, and at her side stood Nyx and Ember, now registered as official military assets with full diplomatic immunity. The crew, a mix of species from across the Empire, watched her with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. She was human. She was young by Imperial standards, and she had been given authority over officers who had served for centuries. "Marshal on deck," the first officer announced, a bird-like avari whose feathers ruffled with barely concealed resentment. Lyanna walked to the command throne, Nyx and Ember flanking her like living shadows. She didn't sit. Instead, she turned to face the assembled officers. "I know what you're thinking," she said, her voice carrying through the bridge. "You're thinking I'm unqualified, that I'm a terrorist who got lucky, that the Empress made a mistake elevating a human to this position." She let the silence stretch. "You're wrong." She activated the holographic display, showing the battles she'd fought, the tactics she'd employed, the impossible odds she'd overcome. "I survived because I never underestimated my enemy. I won because I adapted, learned, and refused to accept defeat. And now I'm here to teach you the same lessons." Her green eyes swept across the bridge. "Work with me and we'll be unstoppable. Underestimate me and you'll end up like Zichther. The choice is yours." No one spoke. Then, slowly, the first officer saluted, his resentment replaced by cautious respect. One by one, the rest of the crew followed. Lyanna finally sat in the command throne, feeling its weight settle around her. Through the viewport, she could see the stars stretching endlessly, full of possibility and danger. She thought of her burned world, her lost family, and the long road that had brought her here. The Empress had called her a victor and given her power beyond imagination. Now it was time to prove she deserved it. "Set course for the outer rim," she commanded. "We have work to do." If you enjoyed this epic journey, subscribe for more incredible HFY sci-fi stories. Follow for tales where humanity proves that heart and courage can shake the very foundations of the cosmos.